This is the tutorial for Chapter 2, Section 7, which is titled Solving Proportions. So let's take a look at the types of problems we'll end up seeing on tonight's assignment. So the first few problems you see are going to just be regular old proportions that we can solve by cross products. And so the way cross products work is this. So if we take the number in the numerator and multiply it by the other fraction's denominator, we can set it equal to the cross product of the other fraction's numerator with the original fraction's denominator. And so we go ahead and do that. We have 3 multiplied by n plus 4, and we'll set that equal to 4 times the sum of n and 1. So when we go ahead and use that distributive property, I'm left with 3n plus 12 equals 4n plus 4. And so from that point, I just need to start moving terms from one side to the next. So I'll subtract the 3n from all sides. If I do that, I'll take the 4 away from all sides. And that leaves me with the answer of n equals 8. I could go back and check to see if it makes sense. Take the 8, substitute it in for n in both of the expressions, and I have 3 over a plus 1, or 8 plus 1, which makes 3/9. On the other side, I have 4 over, and then I have 8 plus 4, or 8 plus 4, I was thinking of the answer there, so let's go ahead and erase that. 8 plus 4, which is 4/12. And so let's see if these are the same number. If I reduce the fraction by dividing the top and bottom by 3, I get 1/3. If I do the same thing on this one, divide them by 4, though, I get 1/3 as well. So you can see how it checks out. So we do the same thing on this problem. Just use cross products. 4d plus 1 multiplied by the negative 2. And then I'll go ahead and multiply that negative 3 over that sum of d and 9. And so from there, when I go ahead and multiply, just watch the signs, it makes negative 8d minus 2. On the other side, I get negative 3d minus 27. So again, we're just doing some opposite operations, bringing variables to one side, constants to the opposite side. And so when I do that, I end up with a negative 5d equals, and this makes negative 25. So when I go ahead and do the division, I end up with positive 5. The two negative signs cancel each other out. So you'll see some problems like that where you just solve some regular proportions, but now we're going to use proportions to come up with answers. So let's take a look at this one here, and it says the windows on a building are proportional. Okay, proportional means we can set a fraction equal to another fraction. And so we need to figure out what goes in the numerator and denominator of each. So remember, a fraction is just a part over a whole. And so we can set it up a few different ways, but this is the way we'll do it. It says the height of each window is 18 inches. The width is 11 inches. And so what they're going to compare that to is the height of the building, which is 108 feet, to the width of the building. And we don't know what that width is, and that's the question. So what I'm going to do when I set up my proportion is I'm going to set it up this way, where I have height over width. I'll just use width like this, and so height over width equals height over width. And so when I say that, I'm talking about the first fraction maybe being like the window, and the second fraction being the building. And it doesn't matter in this case that the units are different because they're going to work out in the end. And so I'm going to set up the first one as 18 over 11. And since it's proportional, I can set the fractions equal to one another, and I can go ahead and write down 108, since that's the height of the building, over x. And so I'm using cross products. 18x equals, and then I have to multiply 11 times by 108. So when I multiply those two, grab a calculator here, and I'll multiply 11 times by 108, and that gives me 1188. So now I have 18x equals 1188, and now I'm just going to divide by that 18, and that will give me my value of x, which represents the width of the building. And so I'll pull out the calculator again, divide that answer by 18, and that gives me 66. So 66 feet is the width of the building. Let's take a look at another problem. It says Eric is planning to make approximately 305 cookies. And so it says if 3 pounds of cookie dough makes 96 cookies. Okay, so we're going to set it up this way. Pounds of cookie dough, I'm going to say pounds of dough, compared to, and I'm comparing it to cookies. So pounds of dough over cookies equals pounds of dough over cookies. And so when I go ahead and substitute in, I'll do 3 pounds over 96, because that was the first one. 3 pounds over 96 cookies equals, now it says how many pounds? Well, we don't know how many pounds, so that's going to be our variable right there, over the total number of cookies that I want to make, so 305, or at least Eric wants to make. And so we go ahead and cross multiply the x by the 96, get 96x. On this other side we have, let's see, that's a 3 there, so that makes 915 equals 96x. So when I divide by that 96, see how many times it goes in there. So 915 divided by 96. So it goes 9.5. So let's write that down. 9.5. So they're saying how many pounds of cookie dough should he make if he needs to make about 305. So we want to make sure we make at least this 305. So if I do 9 pounds of cookie dough, that's not going to be enough. So I'm going to just round this up. We're going to say this is going to be about 10 pounds he's going to end up needing, and that will make sure that we have more. This is enough to make more than 305. And the reason why we'd want to have a little bit extra in case we spill some or do something, so it makes sense to have 10 in this case, 10 pounds. Well, let's take a look at the next one. It says on a map the distance between Sheila's house and Sarday's house is 6.75 inches. And it says according to the scale, it's 1.5 inches represents 5 miles. So let's set that up. So we're going to do inches per mile equals inches per mile. And so we'll start off with the conversion factor here. 1.5 inches over 5 miles equals, now here it says 6.75 inches, so that's going to go on top, over X miles. That's what we're looking for. It says how far apart are the two houses. So we're ready to cross multiply there. 1.5x equals, and we'll do 5 times by the 6.75. So we'll multiply those numbers. 5.5 times 6. Let's clear that. 5 times 6.75, and that gives me 33.75. So 1.5x equals 33.75. Now we need to take that answer and divide by that 1 5/10. That'll give me my value of x. So we'll take that number, divide by 1 5/10. That gives me 22.5 miles. Let's make sure you get those units in there. Don't just leave it as 22.5. You need to understand what that represents. Now let's take a look at a couple more problems here. It says 62 students out of 100 surveyed choose pizza as their favorite lunch item. If the school has this many students, how many students would likely say pizza is their favorite if the survey is a fair representation of the student body? So we're going to say students over the entire class. Students may be surveyed over the entire class, over the total. And these are the ones that like pizza, I should probably say. And we'll do the same thing. So the students that like the pizza and over the total. So let's go ahead and take the survey. It was 62 over 100 equals, now the total student body was 1250 over x. We don't know how many students out of that student body like it until we go ahead and do the cross multiplying. So we'll have 62 times by 1250 equals, and then we have 100 times by x. So we need to multiply that 62 times by 1250, and that gives us 77,500. So let's write that number down. X equals 77,500. And so we go ahead and divide by the 100 to get x by itself. And x is going to end up moving the decimal 2 spaces, so that's going to make 775 students out of the student body would say that pizza is their favorite, if the survey was a fair representation of that account. So let's take a look at the last one here. It says the senior class is taking a trip to amusement park. They receive a special deal where 3 tickets, every 3 tickets they purchase, they receive 1 free ticket. It says 3 tickets cost $53.25. The total purchase was cost this amount. How many tickets did they receive? So we don't know how many tickets. T is going to be the number of tickets. Whatever our variable is, whatever the question is the variable. And let's find the unit rate. Let's find out how much 1 ticket costs. Let's take that $53.25 and let's go ahead and find the unit rate. 3 tickets. And so that's how much we get for 3. So let's do that division, find out what that number is. So we'll plug that in. It's 53.25 divided by 3 is a $17.75. So $17.75 is the cost of 1 ticket. 1 ticket. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that number and we're going to find out how many tickets we ended up getting from that price. And so from the price we totally paid, because we have to pay this amount of money, that's our total. So I'm going to put that on top, 1384.5, and then I'm going to put the x, the number of tickets. Actually, I'll call that t since I used that. So let's go ahead and change that. We'll say over t, and we'll cross multiply. So we have 1775t equals 1384.5. So we do the division there. Divide by the 17.78. Let's see what that number is. So it's 1384.5 divided by 17.75, and that gives me 78 tickets. So 78 tickets is how many we'd end up getting. However, remember that we received 1 ticket, 1 free ticket for every 3 tickets purchased. Okay, so let's do this. So we have 78 times by, and then I've got the 1, but then I also have 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3 tickets are free. And so what I can do is I can go ahead and set up a fraction this way. Instead of 1 out of 3, I could rewrite that as 1/3. So I can multiply the 78 by 1, I get 78, but then I'm also going to multiply it by 1/3. And so let's go ahead and change this. So if I was to actually do the multiplication, I'd have to change this to an improper fraction and then multiply. Well, let's see if 78 goes in, or 3 goes in there. It does. It's 7 plus 8 makes 15, so I know 3 goes in there. So 3 goes into 7. We have 2 times, makes 6 with 1 left over. So 3 goes into 18 6 times, so I just have to multiply the 26 by the 4. And when I end up doing that, I end up getting 104 tickets. Well, those are some examples of similar type of problems that you'll end up seeing on tonight's homework. Good luck.